Greetings, everybody. Today we'll be talking about one of the worst films of all time, The Battle at Lake Changjin. This absolute disgrace of a movie is apparently the largest budget mainland Chinese film ever produced. Yet despite such a grand economic investment, this movie is still crap. For some context, this movie is complete communist propaganda, which is actually understandable as to why, because the commies actually took over the entertainment industry on the mainland, and they, in a futile effort to solidify their questionable legitimacy over this country, decided to make this film in order to improve their image and legitimacy in the eyes of the people, which is something that they have to constantly do because they don't really do good things. And this isn't just my political bias resulting in me making this statement. It is a confirmed fact that this film was specifically commissioned by the propaganda arms of the Communist Party in order to celebrate their 100th year anniversary back in 2021. The plot of this movie is relatively straightforward, and many of the propaganda aspects of this film could be seen here. The movie starts off with a Bolshevik soldier returning home after fighting against the legitimate Chinese government during the Civil War. He helped around the household for a bit, but then the Korean War happened, so he was sent to Korea to fight against the United Nations coalition forces alongside South Korea. It is here that the captions of the movie outrageously state how the United States launched a war against North Korea, making no mention of how it was, in fact, historically, North Korea who launched the invasion first. This is a sign of blatant propaganda. The film also depicts how American bombers are bombing, so-called innocent North Korean villages in order to show the brutality of the Americans. After this film jumps back to Beijing, where the Bolsheviks are located, and they're having like a war meeting. And once again, there's very obvious usage of propaganda here. Mao was portrayed as saying how he didn't want this war, but will fight to defend the communist revolution. But historically, he did want this war and even requested support from the Soviet Union. Furthermore, a subordinate general said how since the U.S. deployed troops in Taiwan, they already began invading China, which is once again historically false and inaccurate, since the Chinese government went on exile to Taiwan, and it was the communists themselves who invaded China and defeated the legitimate government. The rest of the movie is focused on the actual battle. Somehow, once again, very not plausible scenario, somehow the commies take very little casualties and destroy numerous American armored divisions without any major problems, and the two main characters of the film somehow managed to kill 4 American soldiers in unarmed combat. This was not entirely impossible, but highly unlikely due to the difference in level of professionalism, training, and morale on both sides. Historically, the communist side took much more casualties compared to the Americans because they were using human wave tactics, which is something that they were accustomed to during the Civil War. But while it worked against the Chinese army, it proved to be devastating against the American army because the Americans have armored divisions, so human waves don't really work. Anyway, shortly afterwards, the advancing Bolshevik forces were ordered to hold position in anticipation of American counteroffensive. When the offensive began, once again, miraculously, the Bolsheviks suffered minimal casualties, and one of them even killed 3 American soldiers in hand-to-hand combat, which is absolutely unbelievable. If this happened for one time, sure, it could be possible, war, a lot of people fighting, you don't know what's happening, but the chances of this happening again within such a short period of time shows that the film is trying to portray the Bolsheviks as some sort of master fighter, undefeatable godlike beings or something, similar to the Manchu boxers in 1900, where they were like, bullets cannot penetrate me if I drink alcohol or something. But yeah, this is basically the plot of the film summed up. And I actually have a clip here to show and demonstrate the inaccuracies of this movie. Alright, so this is where the clip begins. They're about to launch the attack. Okay, so notice here how the Chinese soldiers somehow have some sort of MP-40 submachine gun, which is not likely. And notice how almost all of them, look, again, a machine gun. Machine guns were not readily available for a communist army, so it would be highly unlikely for them to have this in such large amounts. Furthermore, not every soldier had a weapon, but in this scene, they had like weapons for every person for some reason. And notice here how the Americans are just like running away in chaos, and like the communist forces, the commies are like barely take. Look at this. What is this? Artillery hit right, landed on them. Dude, it landed right on them, and they're not even like, bro. That is. Look at the amount of casualties here. This is absolutely ridiculous. Mortars, sure, yeah, accurate. But remember that the Americans are using armored divisions, and yet somehow they're just like in panic.
They're coming from everywhere.
Like, where's your armor? Where did the armor go? Where did the mechanized infantry go? Where's everyone? Where's everyone? Where do people go? Yeah, classic Americans getting devastated. Yep, once again, human wave assault. And yeah, that's the clip. To fully demonstrate the inaccuracy portion in this film, let's look at the numbers. So, historically, this battle was actually known as the Battle for the Chosin Reservoir, and the communist forces suffered around 30,000 combat casualties. 30,000. The United States suffered, at max, 2,000 casualties. If you look at the numbers, you understand why this scene is such an inaccuracy, because within the scene, it seemed like as if the communists weren't really taking a lot of damage, and in fact, if they were taking any damage, it would be around the same as the Americans in the film, which is highly inaccurate, again, proving that this film is communist propaganda. But yeah, this film, it raised major controversies internationally. Almost everyone agreed that it was communist propaganda. The film was even banned in Malaysia, where the dissemination of communist ideology is illegal. Other critics noted how this film was made not only to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party, but also to demonstrate the tense relations between the communist government of China and America. Not only are there multiple historical inaccuracies, there are also military inaccuracies to the armaments of the Bolshevik forces and their fighting capabilities. People who spoke against the film in mainland China were arrested, such as the Chinese journalist Luo Changping. So yeah, overall this film is complete crap due to how it was made as a propaganda film, and as a result, it is highly biased towards the Bolsheviks and contains many inaccuracies, not to mention a torturous runtime of 178 minutes. It caused international anger, especially in South Korea, where, the South Korean government accused this film of whitewashing the narratives of the Korean War, which is quite legitimate, which I think is a proper accusation. And this film is complete nonsense, which, yeah, it pretty much is complete nonsense. This will remain, and I'm sure that it will remain in history as the worst film ever produced in mainland China, and it is definitely up there in the Hall of Fame of the worst movies in the world. That's about it. See ya.